Truck drivers in India lead difficult lives. Driven by tight deadlines and demanding bosses on low incomes, truckers in India drive for days on end, sometimes without proper rest or meals. As the largely unorganized sector grows every year, so does the number of accidents and deaths. Now, Prime Minister Modi, speaking at the Bharat the Mobility Global Expo 2024, announced a scheme aimed at these truck drivers, who from the very backbone of the Indian freight movement, PM Modi announced a scheme wherein 1,000 modern rest houses will be built for truck drivers, and all facilities will be provided on all major highways and expressways in the country. The first phase will see 1,000 of these rest houses, and subsequent phases will improve upon this number. Before we begin our discussion on this, here's Prime Minister Modi making the announcement at the Bharat Mandapam. Take a look.
साथियों, आज इंडस्ट्री के आप सभी दिग्गजों के बीच, मार्केट की इतनी सारी चर्चाओं के बीच, मैं एक मानवीय पहलू की तरफ भी आपका ध्यान दिलाना चाहता हूं। हमारे लाखों ड्राइवर साथी इस मोबिलिटी सेक्टर का एक बहुत बड़ा हिस्सा है। जो ट्रक चलाते हैं, जो टैक्सी चलाते हैं, वो ड्राइवर हमारी सामाजिक और आर्थिक व्यवस्था का एक अभिन्न हिस्सा है। अक्सर ये ड्राइवर्स घंटों घंटों लगातार ट्रक चलाते हैं, और मालिक भी क्या समय पर क्यों नहीं आया वहीं से शुरू करता है, कहां रुक गया था। इनके पास आराम का समय नहीं होता। ऐसी मुश्किल परिस्थितियों में कई बार ये लोग सड़क हादसों का भी शिकार हो जाते हैं। ट्रक ड्राइवर्स की इस चिंता, उनके परिवार की इस चिंता को भी हमारी सरकार भली भांति समझती है। मुझे आपको ये बताते हुए खुशी है कि ड्राइवर्स को बीच सफर में आराम देने के लिए केंद्र सरकार ने एक नई योजना पर काम शुरू किया है। इस योजना के तहत सभी नेशनल हाईवेज पर ड्राइवरों के लिए नई सुविधा वाले आधुनिक भवनों का निर्माण होगा। इन भवनों में ड्राइवरों के लिए भोजन, पीने के साफ पानी, शौचालय, पार्किंग और आराम करने की पूरी व्यवस्था होगी। सरकार की तैयारी इस योजना के पहले चरण में देश भर में ऐसे 1,000 भवन बनाने से शुरुआत करने की।
All right, Mr. Ramesh Agarwal, National President of the All India Transporters Welfare Association, joins us on the show. Dr. Sharat Kohli, Senior Economist, also with us on the program. Mr. T.S. Ramakrishnan, Railway Expert, with us on the program. Jitendra Gupta, Auto Expert, also joins us on the show. Thank you, gentlemen, for being a part of this important conversation. Dr. Kohli, I'll begin with you. This is absolutely stunning what the Prime Minister has just announced. We know the plight of the truck drivers, how they drive, what conditions they live in, what kind of debacles, they usually are subjected to, because, there is this timeliness attached to their professions as well. How is this announcement extremely important? It is also very encouraging for freight movers and transporters, in the sense that there is finally some structure, there is some dignity attached to being a truck driver in our country.
Well, thank you very much, Vineet, and a very good afternoon to all the NewsX viewers. I think Prime Minister seems to be touching those untouched areas or untouched sectors or untouched people of the society who normally one would not think of. Something which is so practical. 70% of our freight moves by road. And if I'm not wrong, I think Mr. Agarwal would verify this number. There are about, to my mind, about 5 million trucks moving around. And even if I take one driver per truck, although there's more than one always, there's always, a two driver, plus of course their helpers and so on and so forth. So if we extrapolate this number into the number of families affected by this decision, because an accident on the road, because of lack of sleep, because of lack of rest, because of lack of food, because of lack of clean drinking water sometimes, can be fatal, and it can affect about 2.5 to 3 crore families. I'm just taking one truck driver per truck, although it's more, but I'm being very conservative. I'm taking one, so about 5 members in a family. One truck driver loses life, it affects 5 members. So I'm taking a population of about 2.5 to 3 crores who are impacted by this. Now, we need to keep in mind, that there are on the national highways and expressways, especially the newly made ones, the NHI has taken care to make those, refreshing centers. I would say they are restaurants, they are toilets, and so on and so forth. But we should keep in mind that these centers are meant for passenger vehicles. They are not meant for freight carriers. Because imagine if in a recreation center, in a resting center, if 10 trucks enter, it can probably clog the area. And they put barriers where the large and heavy vehicles cannot go in. So I think to be thinking of truck drivers exclusively, where they get drinking water, they get time to rest, I think it's an excellent move. And this will improve the quality of movement which is happening. It will improve on the efficiency of the drivers. It will bring in more accident-free drive, I would say, straight away. But I think here is a word of advice, and I'm sure Mr. Agarwal would appreciate listening to this, which is that the people, the operators, the transport operators, they need to allow, as Prime Minister said in his speech, कि जरा सा देर हो जाता है, तो the operator says, कहाँ रह गया था भाई? It normally takes 8 hours, 9 hours, 10 hours. तुमको 15 घंटे कैसे लग गया? तुमको 18 घंटे कैसे लग गया? And so on and so forth. So when there is going to be a resting center, I think the operators would have to be prepared that if there is a place for a driver to sleep, I think the operator should discount that time and include that time in the transportation period. Or if a driver spends time to have food, although drivers do have, there are those dhabas and, there are various places for, some of the dhabas I find, they even put those, the typical charpais, the jute charpai, where these truck drivers sit, they rest, they eat. In fact, some of the bus drivers, they get free food also, but not all truck drivers get that. So they do not get proper sanitation facilities, proper clean food is not there. They end up eating at places which are unhygienic. And this also leads to truck drivers falling ill. I have often heard truck drivers, incidentally, the chauffeur that I keep, Vineet, I would like to, why I'm knowing so much about this area is my own driver, has been with me for 10 years. But before that, he used to be a truck driver. So often he, during a long drive, he narrates his old stories that how they used to drive for 18 hours, 20 hours, not getting time to sleep, not getting hygienic food, not getting hygienic drinking water, clean drinking water. So I think these facilities are very welcome. They will improve. India needs to bring down its logistic cost. India needs to bring in logistic efficiency. If we are looking at a Viksit Bharat, if we are looking at foreign investment, we are looking at more logistics required. The goods have to move from here to there. And I'm sure this step is going to bring in that efficiency and that I would say safety to the drivers, which is much needed. I'm sure Mr. Agarwal, leading the Transporter Operators Union, would concur with my views. Unless he's got a difference, I would.
Right. Let me listen. Let me hear what Mr. Agarwal also has to say on this. Mr. Agarwal, I hope you can hear me.
जी
अग्रवाल जी, ये अनाउंसमेंट जो की है प्रधानमंत्री मोदी ने, इससे कितने ड्राइवर्स का भला होगा? हम सब जानते हैं कि जो ट्रक चलाते हैं, जिस तरीके से चलाते हैं, जिन कंडीशंस में, जिन स्थितियों में चलाते हैं, उससे एक्सीडेंट्स तो होते ही होते हैं और साथ ही साथ उनका एक जो आत्मविश्वास है इस प्रोफेशन को लेके, इस पर्टिकुलर स्किल को लेकर, उसमें भी घटौती होती है. किस तरीके की मदद मिलने वाली है इस घोषणा से?
मैं सबसे पहले तो हमारे माननीय प्रधानमंत्री, स्वतंत्र भारत में पहली बार किसी देश के प्रधानमंत्री ने उन ट्रक चालकों के बारे में पहली बार सोचा है. कितना भी इनको बधाई दें, कितनी ही इनकी प्रशंसा करें, वह सब थोड़ी है, कम है. क्योंकि इनका एक पीड़ा रहती है कि लास्ट माइल पे बैठा हुआ, अंतिम छोर में बैठा हुआ व्यक्ति को कैसे न्याय मिले, कैसे उसका जीवन आगे बढ़े, ये उनकी एक सोच रहती है. उस सोच की कड़ी में इन्होंने ये अनाउंसमेंट किया है. तो इससे पहले हमारे को एक ड्राइवर का जीवन जानना पड़ेगा, वो ट्रक चालक क्या है. अभी श्रीमान शरद कोहली जी ने काफी अच्छे तरीके से एक अपने व्याख्या की है। ट्रक ड्राइवर वो है जो मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट है इस समाज में, बट मोस्ट नेग्लेक्टेड है। मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट क्यों है कि जब हम सुबह उठते हैं तो मैं मेरी बात कहो तो एक कप चाय का और एक अखबार लेकर मैं उठता हूँ। 6 बजे उठता हूँ या 5:30 बजे उठता हूँ। मेरे को वो अखबार लाता कौन है? एक ट्रक ड्राइवर। यानी कि वो मेरे को जगाने के लिए अपनी रात को 12 बजे नींद हराम करता है कि मैं 6 बजे ये अखबार मेरे देशवासियों को पहुंचा दूं ताकि वो जग जाए। तो मैं एक कहूंगा कि ये देश को जगाने वाला, और उस देश को जगाने वाले के लिए आप लोग हम लोग सब जानते हैं कि मोस्ट नेग्लेक्टेड कैसे है। एक ट्रक ड्राइवर सामान्य, जैसे हम सब लोग 6 घंटे मिनिमम सोते हैं, आदरणीय माननीय मोदी जी जरूर 5 घंटे 4 घंटे सोते हैं, बाकी सभी 6 घंटे सोते हैं। एक ट्रक ड्राइवर का सामान्य 2 घंटे 50 मिनट सोता है। हालांकि वो रेस्ट जरूर करता है 8 घंटे, मगर सो पाता है 2 घंटे 50 मिनट ही। क्यों नहीं सो पाता? यदि वो हाईवे पे अपना ट्रक खड़ा करता है तो डीजल की चोरी, बैटरी की चोरी, स्टेपनी की चोरी, माल की चोरी, रस्से की चोरी, तिरपाल की चोरी, पैसे की चोरी, बड़े बड़े मच्छर और पुलिस के डंडे उनको सोने नहीं देते। सोने में और रेस्ट करने में बहुत फर्क है। तो फटीक हो जाती है, उस फटीक के कारण उसे जाने अनजाने में एक्सीडेंट हो जाता है। इस तरह से 2012 का यदि डाटा मैं लूं, 1,39,000 व्यक्ति एक साल में रोड एक्सीडेंट से, दुर्घटना से मरते हैं, जिसके कारण 26,441 लोग इसलिए मरते हैं कि ड्राइवर्स दे डोंट स्लीप प्रॉपरली। ड्राइवर इतनी बढ़िया गाड़ी चलाता है ट्रक का, यदि गाय का या किसी भैंस का गोबर भी रोड के ऊपर हो तो भी अपने पहिए उसके अंदर न जाए तो क्रॉस करके लेके जाता है, इतनी सावधानी। मगर नींद ऐसी है जो उसको विचलित करती है, जिसके कारण वो एक्सीडेंट और फटीग के कारण हो जाते हैं। दूसरा, एक ड्राइवर सामान्य, हमारी एक औसत आयु है 78 ईयर्स से 79 ईयर्स। हम 78 साल की आयु में मतलब ऊपर जाते हैं, और एक सामान्य ड्राइवर की जो औसत आयु है वो 68 ईयर्स है। वो देश में 10 साल पहले जाता है। 37% ट्रक ड्राइवर्स, उनकी शादियां नहीं होती। कौन नहीं चाहता अपना परिवार करे, मगर शादियां होती नहीं, क्योंकि उनको पता है कि वो 40 दिन में आएगा, 30वें दिन में आएगा, कैसे आएगा कैसे नहीं आएगा। तो ये सारी विडंबना थी ट्रक ड्राइवरों की, और उन सारी विडंबना को जो सबसे बड़ा बिंदु था कि वो कैसे इस तरह की उनकी एक व्यवस्था हो जाए, वो एक जगह सो जाए, वहां पर उनकी ट्रक की जो रखवाली है वो करने वाला मिल जाए, बार्बर वहां मिले, नहाने का पानी वहां मिले, बाथरूम एयरपोर्ट जैसे मिले। ये सारी सुविधा जब हो जाएगी तो ट्रक चालक का ट्रक चलाने का मन करेगा, और ट्रक चालक बनने का भी मन करेगा। आप हिंदुस्तान के अंदर एक वकील का बेटा वकील मिल जाएगा, सीए का बेटा सीए मिलेगा, आईएएस का बेटा आईएएस मिलेगा, मगर साहब ट्रक ड्राइवर का बेटा कभी ट्रक ड्राइवर नहीं बनता। यदि उसके बाप से पूछो क्यों नहीं बनता, वो कहता कि मेरा बेटा भीख मांग लेगा, मगर मैं मेरे ट्रक ड्राइवर नहीं बनाऊंगा, क्योंकि उसने पीड़ा झेली है। तो अब ये शुरुआत हो गई है 2012 में। इसी तरह एपीएमएल ने, अग्रवाल पैकर लिमिटेड ने एक निंद्रा दान केंद्र खोला था। नींद का दान, आपने अन्न का दान, धन का दान, वस्त्र का दान, जल का दान, शरबत का दान सुना होगा, नींद का दान पहली बार सुना है। दुद्दू NH 8 के ऊपर एक 12 एकड़ का प्लॉट लेकर वहां 300 चारपाई, 300 पंखे या 400 चारपाई, 400 पंखे, कंबल, और महीने में 12,000 नींद दिलाते हैं। और उस नींद के कारण 21 जाने अदरवाइज जाती थी, वो बचने लग गई, और ये सब फ्री। तो वो एक ऐसा एक्सपेरिमेंट हुआ। तो पिछले 2022 में 17 सितंबर में माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी ने मेरे को बुलाया था, कहा था कि जो निद्रा दान के बारे में है आप बतलाओ। तो मैंने 4 मिनट विज्ञान भवन में मेरा वक्तव्य रखा, और उसके बाद उन्होंने इमीडिएटली सारे डॉक्यूमेंट्स मांगे, एक कमेटी बनाई, वो मैं वहां जमा कराए, और कुछ पॉलिसी क्या क्या हो सकता है वो जमा कराया। और मैं तो समझता हूं कि मेरी जिंदगी का जो एक पूजा थी कि मेरे हाईवे के ड्राइवर, हमारे आज मैं यहाँ बैठा हूं तो मेरे हाईवे के ड्राइवरों के कारण बैठा हूं, नहीं मेरी कौन पहुंच होगी, तो उनका जीवन कैसे बढ़िया बने, वो तपस्या पूरी हुई। मैं तो लाख लाख इस भारत के प्रधानमंत्री के लाल को कहता हूं।
बिल्कुल ठीक कहा आपने सर, बिल्कुल ठीक कहा आपने। लेट मी आल्सो रोप इन मिस्टर रामाकृष्णन इनटू दिस कन्वर्सेशन। मिस्टर रामाकृष्णन, obviously the backbone of any nation are its roads, are its economy, are its freight carriers and its truck drivers. The Americans and the Canadians and most of Europe has prospered, after World War II because of the attention that they've been able to give to their roads. So the Prime Minister understood it's just not about making good roads and highways, it's also facilitating the people who are going to be using these services and these facilities and these infrastructure extensions to the hilt.
Well. So the dignity of their profession is not just depending on the income or the remuneration that they receive. It is also depending on, how much facilities they get at their workplace. So as far as the truck drivers are concerned, they are left to defend themselves till now. And I still remember a program that I attended convened by Planning Commission. Then it was called Planning Commission 2013. When Mr. C.P. Joshi was the Minister for Surface Transport from UPA 2. And the same question, it was a very big conference organized by Planning Commission. And the same question was asked by the truck association president at the time. It was one Mr. Shanmugam, and then other people were there. So it was asked that why don't you provide restroom for drivers? And unfortunately, the minister did not reply to that question at all. So we have come a long way in providing these facilities to the truck drivers, and it's a good news that ultimately now it has been decided that 1,000 rest facilities will be provided all across India. And when I travel to US, and I have seen that the truck drivers, the cabin of the truck used to be separate from the truck, and it used to be temperature controlled, because in US it is very common for the temperature to go anywhere between minus 15 degrees to say 40 degrees. So to protect them from the external temperature, they have provided. So in India also, if you look at the temperature, it can go up to 3 degrees, 2 degrees to 40, 50 degrees. But there is no provision for drivers to, have temperature controlled cabins while traveling in trucks. But they also don't get enough, facilities for taking rest, taking good food, and then relaxing, and then come back to their profession. And for that matter, I want to tell you, the truck drivers, women are not interested in marrying, whenever the proposal comes from truck drivers, although the income is reasonably good, not very bad, still they refuse to marry truck drivers because they think that this guy lives a dog's life, and certainly it is not worthy enough to marry this person, and he is also away from the home, and all that. So the dignity to the profession can be brought by improving the facilities for the profession, not by, we can't abolish the truck driver position or post all of a sudden. But we can, by bringing facilities to the whole profession, we can ensure that the profession gets dignity, although it is a job of maneuvering the truck all the way from one end to the other end. But by giving good remuneration, not just giving good remuneration, but also by giving good facilities for them in terms of rest and then restrooms and other things, we can ensure that the dignity of the dignity of the driver force is, lifted up, and thereby we can see that the entire truck profession, do well. And it is also very important because this also have collateral effects in terms of reduced, accidents. People can take rest whenever they want to take rest. Otherwise, they just sleep on the same cabin or they sleep under the trucks. So it is extremely painful for the life of a truck driver. Whenever, if a person gets an opportunity to travel with the truck driver for say around 2,000 kilometers, then they will realize that how much hardship they face during the travel. So this is a very long demand from the truck owners and truck drivers associations. And fortunately, the Prime Minister has taken up this issue and then announced it today. So it's a great news for the truck industry, and it is also to lift the dignity of the truck drivers. And if there are any other questions, I'll come back to that after this.
Dr. Gupta, what is your assessment of this announcement by Prime Minister Modi? The lives of truckers have finally been respected, understood, and brought to some sort of a closure that is prevalent in other big democracies and markets.
See, basically what I feel is there need to be a proper study how rest of the world is operating. Because here in India, what we find is that a trucker, as it is already said, by some speakers that once he leaves his home, he returns back after 30 days, 40 days. So this is something which needs attention. Like we have similar situation where a motorman is driving a train, but his destination is fixed. He leaves Mumbai, he will go up to Ratlam, and maybe he will be returning back to Mumbai. Like it's an 12 hours duty that he is doing.
So you're muted. Okay, we've lost Mr. Gupta there.
And I have a point to make here. Shall I come?
Yeah, go on.
Yeah.
So we lost your video. Go on.
Yeah. So this is where actually some of the organizations have already developed a model where the truck driver will travel for around 400 kilometers in one way and then wait for the next.
No, sir. So
truck
wait.
to come
It
on the-
was Mr. Gupta's turn to speak. So please, I'll come to you, sir. Please don't come in the middle on your own. Mr. Gupta, go ahead.
Yeah. So what happens? See, like the way the trains are managed, the motorman has got a fixed duty, fixed destination. He will travel to a particular destination and then he'll back home. He'll be back home. And the same is not condition with a truck driver. Why don't we have a system where the truck driver leaves his home and he is returning back to the home? Like that will solve his family life. He will get, as it is said, that they find difficulty in getting married. So that is also a solution to his personal family life. Again, we know that earlier there had been studies where the maximum cases of what you call this contagious disease was with truck drivers. So actually there was a program earlier which was taken care of, and this free condoms were distributed to these truck drivers because they practically have no family life. So they get into all sorts of other things. So that has to stop somewhere. Only providing a rest house is not a solution. Those rest houses will maybe tomorrow become a prostitution den. So that has to be taken care. The truck driver life has to be fixed. He has to travel a particular distance. He has to work for particular hours, and then he has to return back. Unless that happens, and somewhere the government may have to take a step and may have to make it more organized, you can say. Unless this sector becomes an organized sector, this exploitation, I would straight away call it's an exploitation, that you are making a truck driver work for 18 hours, you are putting a condition that within so many hours you have to reach certain destination. So he is forced to travel more distance in more working hours. He may be driving, even if you provide a rest house, he may not take a rest at that rest house and he may continue driving. You have no control on
Dr. Kohli has a point.
his working.
Right.
That has to be more, you need to somewhere put a cap on his working hours.
Absolutely.
Unless that happens, nothing will improve.
Right. And Dr. Kohli, there's also this concept of hazardous pay, which is exercised throughout the world. If you're working at an oil rig, you obviously earn more. If you're working and servicing TV towers, you obviously earn more because it does involve a certain level of danger. Do you think that is also a concept that we have been kept bereft of?
Well, Vineet, with due respect to Mr. Gupta, because the announcement has just come, so I don't think we should call these rest centers becoming prostitution centers or anything of that sort. I think that is dragging things to a bit of an extreme. But due respect to Mr. Gupta's opinion, I think that is stretching the imagination a bit far. But a few things I think, which I think Mr. Agarwal would concur with me, and he would like to, because we've seen that a lot of truck drivers, to kill the stress, to kill the fatigue, they get into drinking. I think the most common problem for all truck drivers is because in order to be awake for those 2-3 hours, which Mr. Agarwal very rightly pointed out, the average sleep time is 2 hours 50 minutes. So one of the solutions I have found that truck drivers find is they get into drinking. So they get into alcohol, or they get into smoking. They smoke bidi, cigarettes, and all sorts of things. I think that is something which I feel, obviously may not be government's task directly, but I feel the Motor Transport Union must set up counseling centers for these truck drivers where they should be told that alcohol is not the way to kill your fatigue. Now, of course, with these centers coming up, some part of the problem would be solved. And what I would, what Mr. Gupta said was an extreme, but I would say that they can become drinking centers, or they can bring their own bottles from here and there. Sometimes it's hooch. They end up buying, those spurious stuff. So I think which can be very detrimental to health. So what I would suggest as a value plus services for these centers, apart from food, clean water, proper sanitation and so and so, I think these centers can also serve as counseling centers where these truck drivers, since they are away from the families, very rightly pointed out, they are on travel for a month or so. I think counseling centers where they are made to that, look at the army men, they remain away for months together. So these truck drivers can be counseled that they don't get into drinking, they don't get into smoking and so forth. Then I think medical checkups is another aspect which these resting centers should have. So if there is a doctor on duty or some kind of basic medication is there where somebody's got a headache or he's running fever. So what these truck drivers do is, because they know they have to reach their destination, so they keep driving with the fever on. They keep driving. So I feel medical facilities at these truck centers, I hope they are there. They must be inherent. But in case it is not there, through your show, let this message reach. A medical facility should be there for them. A counseling center should be there. And a very sensitive issue, which I think Mr. Gupta touched upon, I'm sure this is for Mr. Agarwal to take up, because a lot of truck drivers, they complain that the remuneration they get after driving for so long, obviously, if you ask most people who are part of the workforce, probably 75% or will say we are not satisfied with the remuneration. Well, most people are not satisfied, but a remuneration which matches their expenses, the fact that they remain away from the house for a very long time, the fact that they have to remit money to the family, depending on the distance being traveled, depending on the kind of truck being driven, depending on the number of days being spent, I think a relook without disturbing the logistic cost to the industry, of course. As I said, it's a very sensitive issue, and I'm sure Mr. Agarwal, आप मुझे इस बात के लिए क्षमा करेंगे, क्योंकि ये ट्रक ड्राइवर्स की जो जनरली प्रॉब्लम्स होती हैं, हालांकि आपने बहुत अच्छे से उसको अग्रवाल साहब ने उसको समझाया है, very astutely explained, I must say, by Agarwal साहब. और मैं चाहूंगा कि ये 3-4 मुद्दे हैं अग्रवाल साहब, अगर if this can be addressed, Vineet, I hope you concur with me.
चलिए, let's quickly listen into what Mr. Agarwal has to say. We've run out of time as well. Agarwal ji.
Thank you so much, sir. मगर मैं गुप्ता जी काइंडली डोंट टेक अदरवाइज, बिकॉज गुप्ता जी कोई 20 साल पहले की बात कर रहे हैं. आज ड्राइवर वो सम्माननीय है, वो मान मिलता है. एक ड्राइवर जो पहले कभी कुछ लेता होगा, आज लोकल ड्राइवर मिनिमम 25,000 एंड द लॉन्ग हालेज ड्राइवर जो ट्रेलर चलाते हैं वो 45,000 रुपीज पर मंथ लेते हैं. वो हम अपनी किताब में देते हैं तो सारी इंडस्ट्री +-2 हो सकता है, अदरवाइज वो नहीं. अब रही बात उनकी रेस्ट की, कितने घंटे चलाते हैं, दैट बिकम ए हिस्ट्री. अब मॉनिटर होता है कंट्रोल रूम से, एवरी ड्राइवर कितने घंटे बाद यदि वो चलता है, सपोज 3.5 या 4 घंटे के बाद इमीडिएटली कंट्रोल रूम से आता है, उस्ताद जी क्या हो रहा है, रेस्ट करो. तो वो जमाना खत्म हो गया, क्योंकि हर ड्राइवर कनेक्टेड है. तो इसलिए ड्राइवर की तो 2 ही डिमांड थी कि उसको रेस्ट रूम मिल जाए, और यदि रेस्ट रूम नहीं मिलता था तो किसी अननोन ढाबे पर रुकते थे. और आप को सबको ही पता है, वंस यू इंटर इन एमपी और वहां पर जो बैड एलिमेंट्स होते हैं, जो इस टाइप की जो कुछ औरतें होती है जो कुछ चारों तरफ घेरती है और अननेसेसरी से उससे कुछ बुरा काम करा लेती है, जिसके कारण वो बीमार बनते हैं और वो HIV वो सब कुछ का शिकार बनते हैं. अब वो नहीं होगा, क्योंकि एक कंपाउंड का उसकी जगह होगी, उसमें कोई अंदर नहीं जा सकता. देयर बी वॉचमैन इनसाइड एट, और कोई भी बैड एलिमेंट्स नहीं जाएंगे. अब एक चिंता और है जो सरकार को करनी है, वो जरूर करेंगे कि ड्राइवर का बेटा ड्राइवर बने. इसके लिए कि ड्राइवर का सम्मान कहाँ मरता है. एक होता है रीजन टू बिलीव. आपके घर में कोई इनकम टैक्स वाला आता है तो ही हैज ए गुड रीजन टू बिलीव. आपके घर में GST वाला आता है, देयर इज ए रीजन टू बिलीव. अब हमारे हाईवे के ऊपर हर एक दरोगा विदाउट रीजन टू बिलीव उसको बोलता है उतरो और चेक करो. तो ड्राइवर बोलता है, परमात्मा धरती फट जाए मैं समा जाऊं, मैं कौन सा क्रिमिनल हूं, व्हाई दे चेक मी.
जी सर, बिल्कुल ठीक कहा आपने. परिवर्तन होगा, इट्स अ ट्रांसफॉर्मेशनल स्टेप एंड इट इज अ स्टेप व्हिच इज गोइंग टू गिव द ड्राइवर्स देयर डिग्निटी बैक, देयर एम्बिशन बैक, एंड ऑफ कोर्स the sense of belonging to this industry back. We've run out of time. We'll take a short break on that note. Would like to thank all my guests.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.